Hi, this is Amanda.
And this is Jen.
And you're listening to Just This, a podcast that explores everything around being and becoming a mother or parent.
We're excited to have you join us as we dive into the practical details as well as the unseen energetics on topics that span from preconception to years after birth.
We're back again and we're doing dating as a parent. And Amanda's going to chime in here with her experience from friends. And I'm just going to go off of my own personal experience in dating.
I think this is a good one. I know a lot of single mommy friends, both who were partnered at the beginning and who chose to not be partnered entering into motherhood. And I am a child of single mom growing up, so I can put my 2 cents in there.
I like that too. That's awesome. That's a great perspective because before I started dating, I asked my son, hey, how do you feel about me dating? Not that I was looking for his approval, but just curious, his thoughts. And he was fine with it. I felt a little bit more at ease going out on dates. And I'm curious from your childhood perspective, how you felt when your mom went out on dates.
Yeah, I think there's many pieces to this. As with anything, every situation is very nuanced. For example, if you are a single parent by choice, raising your kids and then choosing to date, of course, kids might have opinions, but if that's what you've been doing the whole time since they were children and you're carrying that on, that's nothing new or different for them. And I'd be curious to hear, because you were partnered before and then went through a separation and divorce and then entered the dating world, were there certain parts that you felt you had to reach before you enter the dating world again? Because overall, I think from a child perspective, at least on my end, and really reflecting back on things and even looking on things now we have a very modern family setup, it really just comes down to, is everybody happy? Because if your parent is happy and the people around you are happy, as a child, that's really what matters the most.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a secure attachment to your child and you have a secure connection with yourself, I always come back to connection starts with you. So if you have a really secure connection with yourself, then there can be many people coming in and out of your life, whether that's through dating or through community or whatever. And the child has a sense of security and stability and is seeing love and happiness, and they're feeling that too.
That's interesting you say that, because after I asked him and contemplated on it, I really felt that. I think that he just wants me happy.
Your son.
And my son, yeah. And so I think that really
How
did
old?
carry through.
Let's like
He
put some
was,
perspective.
yeah,
How
so
old?
he was
Like 2? No.
5. No, he was like
Yeah.
5-ish.
Still pretty young.
Still pretty young, yeah. But again, I think he did really want to see me happy. And I didn't necessarily jump into dating a lot post-divorce. So I think that helped. I felt like I spent a lot of time really taking care of myself and refining myself and finding internal happiness before I went back out into the dating world in that way. So I think that was very true.
Do you want to speak a little bit to how long it took before you did enter the dating world again, or any kind of closure or healing you did or felt you needed to do?
Yeah, I think it was probably about a year. I really started to go on the apps and start dating. And I don't know, I think it just was a feeling for me. I'm feeling ready now to kind of date. And I may have dated a little bit before that, just very casually go on the apps, maybe go out on a date. And one thing I noticed early on was that I like to have coffee dates first because they are generally in the morning. And depending on the person, you could have them during the weekday even. But even on the weekend, it was much easier to find a friend to watch your kiddo for a couple hours in the morning and then go on the date and get to know them. And then from then determine, oh, hey, do I want to pay for a sitter or send him off to a friend for the evening? So I think that was helpful. And I don't know if there was like a certain moment that I was like, oh, I'm ready to date. But I think it's just more of I'm feeling ready to go out there again and be vulnerable, essentially.
And a follow-up question to that, because there's a lot of people who will date, but then that doesn't necessarily mean the kids are meeting the people that they're dating. So I'm curious on your end, because I've seen so many different approaches with this. How long was it that you were dating before Eli? Did you tell him from the get-go, hey, are you okay with me dating? Was that like a full on before you started? Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's awesome. I
100%.
really think that open communication, you don't have to necessarily ask permission. I don't believe
Right.
in that. But I do believe in saying, just as we would with our kid with anything else, hey, this is what I need for myself, and this is what I'm going to be doing. And I want to let you know that. And just because then they don't
Yeah,
feel totally abandoned or shocked or surprised or lied to be honest, like any relationship in our life.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, and I did do some research about that too. Like, when do you introduce somebody to a person that you're dating? And the research was really mixed from what I found. And what I fell back into was that bringing somebody in and having your child connect with somebody on a very deep level and then leaving is going to be hard for a child. So I was aware of that aspect. But they also said having a bunch of people come in and out of their lives could be bad. And my kind of thought around that was, how's that any different than a stranger we meet at the park for a couple hours or a friend that's around and then we move or something like that? I just took the note on it like, hey, I don't want to have a bunch of people through my kiddo's life. And I also don't want him to build this relationship that could potentially lead to heartbreak. But also, I think that's part of life. And I just was trying to be conscious of all that as opposed to setting hard rules for that. Being a single mom, not having family around, I learned to do the coffee dates. And then as I got to know the person, then I would sometimes invite them over to my place after my son went to bed. And so the way that kind of worked is I try to have them stop by at least once during the day or the week, just something so they just could at least meet him and he saw their face. But it was like very casual and nothing super
tell
like
you
this
this
person
friend.
you're dating. It's just like
Yeah.
it's a friend. Yeah, it was a friend. And that's how I always introduced them in the beginning. And that seemed to work out really well. And the only reason why I wanted him to meet someone before is just so he wasn't waking up to a stranger in a house, particularly another male. But he never woke up, and that worked out really well, that situation for me. So I could have some time and then also free babysitting essentially. Because that was a big barrier. Dating was like, if you go on a date for a couple hours, you're paying a babysitter, that adds up quick. So that was how I vetted people, so to speak, is through the coffee dates because I could get the babysitting from a friend. It's like a couple hours. And then I knew, oh, is this something I really want to spend literally money investing in, right? As a
Yeah.
potential person to date. I
Yeah.
think one of your friends was the one that said that too. They did like coffee dates or something like that. That's genius.
I can't remember who. I definitely have heard this, and it's a struggle and something to consider as a single person. Not everybody has their kids in school even. Some people, it's much less available to them, and when you're prioritizing things on, like, your self-care, your to-do list, everything else, it's sometimes hard to especially if you've been on a few dates and you just start feeling discouraged. I don't know if you had that feeling.
Of course.
And so it's a tricky one with the younger kids, and if you have multiple, then it really starts to add up or get expensive, and I do know people too who just take breaks sometimes, and as much as they want to date, it becomes either like, "This is my source of entertainment, and I hope it's something that I enjoy," or, "I'm just gonna put this on the side and not even consider dating for a while," and probably it's like cycles. I think a lot of people go through those. You can probably relate to that. Which isn't all that different from maybe dating when you don't have kids, but there is so many more layers to juggle as a single parent.
Mhm.
One of the other advantages in some ways to being a partnered parent originally is that you probably not always, but the other partner does take the kid at sometimes. And a lot of people have the 50-50 now. The courts really
Mhm.
try to go for that, but you probably took advantage of those windows where he was gone.
Totally. And that's, again, definitely took advantage of those windows. They were much less than 50-50. And so that's why I went to this night thing after I met them a few times to fill in that gap.
There's so many aspects I wanna hit on here. Do you wanna speak to anything, like, during your dating journey? Does anything come to mind of just lessons learned or things you if somebody was entering the dating world as a single parent, whether you were partnered before or you chose to be a single parent, what tips would you be like, yeah, just to avoid you some frustration, or here's something that I wish I would have known going in?
I think probably wish I would have known is that cycle thing that you talk about. It just definitely happens. And when you get to that spot where you just feel hopeless in the dating world, wondering if there's a good person out there for you, just take a break and come back when you're ready, close out the apps or just don't respond to them. I think that was a big lesson. And I think be flexible too. I went on dates with somebody that had kids too, and just sometimes it just works out better instead of both trying to find a babysitter, like we met at a park. I think just being flexible in that way.
It's interesting because I can see both sides where I'd like to have some like one-on-one time to get to know you without the kids around, because ultimately I get it. But also, this is your life. This is my life. And welcome. I guess maybe for the first time you meet somebody, not so much, but have you been talking to them on the phone for a long time? Do you want to come for a hike with us or something like that? Or do you want to come join us for this activity I already have planned? I think that's also a really good way as a single parent to weed out the people who are going to work or not. And I know people who actually want to date people who they don't really want to invite them in to be a part of the family. They just want them to be, I'm dating you on the side. And there's so many different ways relationships look and work. And I respect that. As somebody also who's not been much in the dating world as a parent, but I don't know, this is something I would imagine is just being very clear on what you want is even more important. That connection again to yourself and getting really clear on what am I looking for here? What is it that I want out of this? And what is it that I want out of dating and a relationship? What kind of a relationship do I want? And then just probably more so than if you don't have kids, just because you don't have time to fuck around, is being clear, this is exactly what I want. But I know you've been in relationships where you were flexible. Maybe you can speak to that, because that's an interesting thing too, because you knew what you wanted and yet you felt like you had a connection with somebody. I don't know if you thought maybe it would change, but you were enjoying it for what it was. There was probably a little bit of foot in both worlds and being flexible, and I know what I want. This is filling half of it. I don't know if you can speak to that too.
Yeah, definitely. I think that comes around when people just don't want. I wanted a long-term relationship. That's what I was looking for. It came around where I felt really connected with somebody and they didn't necessarily want the long-term relationship. That's okay. Going in those cycles of dating, sometimes it's nice to just appreciate it for what it is. And when you're in that state and they don't want anything long-term, it's not like you can't go out and continue dating. It was nice during a period of time just to have that person there. I could text them. It was very casual and I could still date if I wanted. But it was very nice in those interpartum times too, where you're just not really wanting to go out on the dating apps and have that support. So I think that's where that flexibility came in that way too. Looking back, that was really fun. I'm glad I did that. Keeping in mind what you want and then knowing that it's okay that if for a period of time you partake in something you don't want fully.
I think you did enjoy it. And I think it came to the point where you realized it had run its course.
Yeah.
And that was hard for you. It's just hard to be in relations sexually with people and not have emotional weaving. I'm sure for the other person, it was hard as well, but they handled it like an immature baby. I'm just going to say they really did.
They did. And I have had some that it was very similar in that where they didn't want anything long term or they were going to be moving and things were just not in that place. And that ended on a very good note. It's both parties, right?
Like with any relationship.
Yeah. That was the other research I did is how soon you should date after. One thing that really stood out to me in that research was what is wrong with showing your children that you want to date and showing your children what dating looks like, right? People come into life and then sometimes they don't stay. And it's not that they're bad people or anything like that. It's just that the connection's not there or not the right fit or whatever the case is. I really took that as a big philosophy in dating that why can't I go out on dates? What's the big deal about it?
We have so many set up structures. I don't know what we want to call them, not structures, but these like templates of how things should be in our society. And obviously, depending on where you live, that's being pushed by different family models and single people choosing to be single parents on their own from the get-go. I agree. I think it's the same with sexuality. It's like, why are we not teaching our kids the actual names for their body parts? Never understood that. But I know people out there, and it's cute and fun, and I think very empowering for kids to know what their body parts are. If you're in a partnered relationship, having public displays of affection. Don't we want to model for our kids that, like, yeah, this is what it looks like when people really love each other and are really happy. And this is what it looks like to meet people and to have different people in our life. And I agree. A lot of us don't see what building a healthy connection with other people looks like, or realizing we don't want to be their friends, quote unquote, anymore. And letting them be okay. That's almost a very easy way to teach kids. Look, you can be friends with somebody for a little bit and then decide that you both served your purpose and you had your fun together and you did whatever. It's time for you to both go in your own ways, and we don't have to cry about it. Or we do cry about it. Maybe we do. And then that's okay. Like, we let it, we grieve, and we move on.
Right. Exactly.
I really love that. I do remember what I was going to say. I know a certain handful of men. It's interesting because when you reach this mid-30s to mid-40 age range, and men who are dating, and I think it's just as important, men and women, whatever you identify as, if you're dating somebody with a kid, being very clear, do I want to have a kid with this person? Because these are people, I find this fascinating, and this has nothing to do with parenting. Well, I guess it does. People who are dating in this age range, dating women, birthing people who haven't had a kid yet, who are in that like very, hey, it's like now or never. Not to say never, because things are advancing and one day we'll probably be able to have babies when we're 60. But they are dating these women who have it on their mind and they're not sure that they want to have a kid. And not to say that they don't want to have a kid, they don't want to have a kid with somebody, right? Date a single mom. That's a great idea. All. You don't have to have a child in the sense of starting from the beginning. You don't have to have the baby phase, but there's plenty of single mothers out there who don't want any more children. You don't have to be that father, but you can have the family life without really having to do it all. It's, again, comes back to what's your intention? What do you really want? And getting clear on what you really want, because it makes it so much easier if you go into things for both people when you're clear with what you want.
Right. The other thing is that comes up is this idea that you're finding that replacement, quote unquote, for your child. I was never the person that went about it in that direction. Mine was always, it would be nice for my son to have a healthy, strong father figure, but there's no replacing his father, right? Or vice versa. There's no replacing the mother or anything like that. That's a really important thing to think about going in, is that there's never going to be a replacement, even in the kid's eyes, for that. But having a healthy relationship is, to me, the best thing I could do for my son. Hopefully, that person really loves my son like his own, right? But it's not, again, a replacement. So I think that's another important piece that I've noticed in the dating world, especially with other parents that have kids, is this kind of like idea to get them a replacement, so to speak.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up, because the people I know who are single parents in the beginning, it's exactly the opposite. They don't want somebody coming in wanting to be a parent almost. It's, yes, I want you to be a partner, but it's, they made this choice and they went into this parenting journey on their own. They don't need you to come in and be this, obviously not a replacement because nothing was there, but this crutch that they don't have. Are you going to augment my life? Are we going to have something powerful here and be source of love for each other and for this child? Yes, that's great, but I've been doing this for myself the whole time.
Right, exactly. And on the other end, if you're dating someone like that, then just keep that in mind too.
Let's just transition to you're in a current relationship. One thing I think here that's very interesting is I always think there's some really great connections that happen on apps. They really are. The value of apps as a parent, as far as efficiency, is amazing. You can probably speak to that. And I think there's just still something magical about meeting people IRL when you're out doing things. And it seems to be less and less, probably because with the apps, it's easy to set those really clear right up front. This is what I'm looking for. These are my expectations. And so you can find that match. But yours happened to be an IRL connection.
Which is interesting because we actually found out after that we had matched on Tinder or something, but somehow we couldn't connect through Tinder after, which was really interesting. I might have deleted him. But yeah,
We were having too much fun.
I was having too much fun. Yeah. And I actually found, I have to say, the apps, I don't know if they're really efficient because I got to a point where I'm like, if I had the money, I'd definitely hire a matchmaker because I think that's the thing about the apps. It's just like a numbers game at some point, right? You got to go through and maybe you're the lucky one that gets a good number early on. Other people, it's down the line. Because of my time issues that I had, not issues, but everyone has time issues. I'm not a great texter on apps and things like that. And just talking via text, I was the type of person that, hey, cool. Yeah, let's chat a little bit. You sound good. Let's meet in person because I knew if I met that person IRL, right, in real time, I would know generally if I wanted to continue the relationship to see if they're interested. I just didn't have a ton of time to text people. I know there's other people out there that are opposite. They want to spend 5 days, weeks talking via app. And I'm like, no, let's meet in person and see how this goes. That was actually one advice that I did get later on that I appreciated, which is that if it's not a hard no, then see them again. And so I think that's a good thing to keep in mind too, because sometimes people are nervous. But yeah, so I did meet a person in real time and the dynamic was very interesting because we lived in the same apartment complex. We knew the kids, I knew his kids, he knew mine right from the start. So that was just a very different way of going about
Like
it.
the kids are hanging out all the time and then the parents start to
exactly.
They like each other too.
Yeah.
Very movie-esque.
It was very movie-esque. And it was nice because then we'd start meeting up with the kids too. It didn't look
almost like the kids chose the relationship.
Yes. It's interesting because even when I got on the apps, I feel like I'm going to really just meet this person, my person in person. But I just went on the apps because it's like, I got to show the universe that I'm trying. Because I wasn't going to go to a bar.
Coming back to the energetics, which we always like to weave in. I think it's great that you had that intuitive knowing. And we always talk about it. They talk about in manifestation, like aligned action. I am in this little group where we do business things. And it's funny because every week we, for accountability, put in our group what we're doing for the week. And it's just whatever feels most aligned. And sometimes that's a very business related task that we're doing. Sometimes it's I am going to meditate every day this week, whatever it is. I'm going to make this connection with this friend that I've been meaning to call. The idea is that in doing these actions that feel aligned, that sometimes we'll do things and all of a sudden just something that we couldn't even have planned or imagined, it's putting an energetic ripple out there because it feels like the right thing to do this week and something we've been putting off doing, but we know we need to do. Oftentimes it is related to business, but it can be just some small thing that we've just been putting off or resisting or whatever it is. And just by making that small adjustment, we're energetically pushing ourselves back on course. That's when the magic unfolds. It's this web and you're pulling from one side of the web and then all of a sudden something appears on the other side. Yeah.
And you gave me some good advice too.
On your dating apps?
Just in dating in general. Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm saying.
I don't know if it's appropriate for this podcast, but you're like basically, Jen, you just need to go out there and be a slut.
Hey, there is something to be said about slut energy. Then I'm going to link to this because I think everyone could benefit from it. I know she has online programs now, but I discovered this woman in Austin and she has a whole program. It's just once a week. Maybe it's expanding now in Austin, but it's called Big Pussy Energy. There is something to be said. Even if you're a slut with yourself, get out there and be a slut. You needed that because
I did. I needed it, and I realized
people maybe wouldn't need that, but you need it.
I needed it, and I guess it's funny because it was very short-lived, but like you said, it was good advice.
I really hope your mom's not listening right now. I'm sorry, Pam. She's never going to talk to me again.
I think also I realized in that I have a very low-level version of slut. But again, I think that what it did was allow a lot of freedom, right? Go out there and enjoy yourself. Don't get so caught up in your head. I think that
was
like,
easy to do when you're a parent.
Yeah.
When I learned that you had never really had a chance to have fun, I'm like, okay, it's time. This is my mere life to go do it. And I think as parents in general, we talk about this with our fertility journey. My friend always likes to say, why so serious? Like, why so serious? You really just,
Right.
why so serious? Because the more you can just be lighthearted, and especially if you're getting frustrated and you really, really want something, time to either take a pause or just be like, what can I do that's just going to make this really fun right now? That's probably not the most logical thing to do.
I also learned in that I was not a great slut. But it was fun pretending to
one
not.
version of it. Everybody has
Version, yeah. I like that.
I mean, my slutness looks very different now than it did when I was in my 20s.
There you go.
And that would differ from the teens, so it's always
Right.
evolving.
It's evolving. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a book I'll link as well called Pussy, and it's by Mama Gina. Do you know Mama Gina?
It sounds familiar though.
Oh, you have to read this book. It's so
Okay.
good. So if you're
Okay.
listening, read this book. It will really give you permission to be a slut, however that looks to you, and get you a little bit more in touch with maybe what your inner slut is wanting. So,
There you go. I love it. Awesome.
any final words about dating? We could really talk forever about dating. And I know there's, again, if you're listening, this is just coming from our perspectives of where we've been. And if you have some crazy, interesting dating story to share, please do. We have a voicemail or you can email us. I just think it's an important thing to talk about, as with many things. It's like it's not talked about much. Do you have other single friends that you talk about it with, or?
No, I was trying to think back too. Not really. Like a lot of my friends were actually more living through me, like through the dating. Like they'd love to hear about my dating experiences. And
I was that one.
okay, yeah, I know.
I did it too. You were like, sure, just take it. And I was like doing the Tinder one day. I'm like, yeah, this is so fun. Yeah.
And then just like hearing about dates. I have some single friends, not necessarily with kids. I think that's the hard part too when you're dating with kids is that the challenge of finding other people that are just dating with kids too, because generally they're partnered. But again, I didn't necessarily reach out to a ton of people during that time period. I think overall takeaway is do what you feel is right, but also don't feel that you have to hide it or shame it or anything like that, because I think a lot of parents are afraid of that. And I think have a talk with your kid, see what's coming up. Mine didn't have anything come up, but I'd still check in with him occasionally, and he'd see me get ready for dates sometimes. I think that he enjoyed that. Sometimes I'd ask him, like, which jewelry should I wear? Things like that. Include them in a different way. That helps them get on board with things too.
From my perspective, growing up, I never remember really having any issues with my mom dating people. And it's not like she had many people coming in and out, especially when I was younger. She was more protective of that. And probably there were friends that I just didn't even know.
Right, exactly.
But I do remember when I was in middle school, there was somebody who moved in with us, and he just became my best friend. Retrospectively, we're both like, yeah, he was a giant child, very immature man, but it was fun for me. And it was fun for her at the time too. I think that's come back to that. It served its purpose and it added the fun, and it wasn't a forever thing, but long enough that he lived with us. But there was nothing in my mind that made me feel insecure or that you're trying to be my dad. It was just very normal. And maybe that was, I don't know why, but it felt very normal. I tell people that too. There's people out there who feel shame. And I always remember, like, from my perspective, I would much rather have a parent that is happy and dating versus two married, unhappy parents that you can just feel that seething energy off of all the time.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyway, happy dating to any of you dating there. You're not alone.
Yes. Share your wisdom, your tips, and talk about it more, because I think that's definitely an area that's lacking here for sure.
We'll be back soon with another episode.
Hey there, amazing listeners. We just want to say a huge thank you for tuning into our convo on the Just This podcast today. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners, and your continued support means the world to us.
If you enjoyed this episode and found value in it, we would be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, or share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it too. Your reviews and shares not only motivate us, but they also help others discover our show.
We're also all about keeping the conversation going and hanging out with our incredible community. Head over to justthis.site, that's justhis.site, where you'll find additional resources, ways to connect with us, and join the conversation, plus some more goodies.
Thank you again for being a part of the Just This community. We'll be back soon. Until next time, remember to take care of yourself and embrace the wonder as you navigate this extraordinary adventure.